This film is titled Reign of Terror. It was released under a different title at some point, The Black Book, which arguably might have been a better title. It was produced by Eagle Lion Studios. Eagle Lion really became known in the late 1940s for what we now call the noir style, and particularly with the director and cinematographer of this film, Mann and John Alton. The film is strikingly good. The cast is excellent. Robert Cummings, Arlene Dahl, the great Richard Basehart. The thing that really makes this movie, in my opinion, so great from a visual sense was the producer, who was the great William Cameron Menzies, who basically invented the term production design. And I'm really pleased that our special guest here today has just written a book about William Cameron Menzies. Anyone that knows anything about cinema and film biographies knows James Curtis. His works hold up a good share of my bookshelves at home. He has written seminal biographies on W.C. Fields, Spencer Tracy, Preston Sturges, James Whale, and now the great William Cameron Menzies. So please give a warm welcome to our special guest, Mr. James Curtis. This was really a low-budget film, and what was talk about Menzies' role in this film and how he made it look like it did.
Well, the idea behind this was Menzies. He was working with Walter Wanger, the producer, and Walter Wanger had just come off of a tremendous flop, a film called Joan of Arc, which was a partnership between Wanger, Ingrid Bergman, and Victor Fleming, the director, and they spent something like $4.5 million on it, and it lost it all. And Wanger was hurting; he did not have the capital he needed to continue, and so it was Menzies' idea to take the standing sets that were built on the Universal lot for Joan of Arc and write a cheap film to go with it, where you could give it the scale the standing sets would give it. And at the same time, you could very much control the interiors in such a way so they could build partial sets. Design the film very carefully so they could get away with a budget, in this case, of $220,000.
That's the catering bill.
Yeah, that's the catering bill. So that's what they did. They relied on Menzies, who took, as you notice, the producer credit on this film. He had gotten to the point where production design was not as distinctive as he would have liked, because art directors were taking it. They weren't really doing what he did. What he did was really quite singular. So Menzies was essentially in control of the film. He worked very well with Mann. There was a great deal of collaboration between the two men. Norman was on the film quite a bit. He talked to me about it.
Right.
It was one of these three-week wonders that was designed to really turn a profit at the same time, be really a work of art also. And they did their very best with it. It just broke even, unfortunately.
Arlene Dahl told me when I interviewed her about this film some years ago that Tony Mann, she also mentioned Menzies was on the set at all times, and she said Tony Mann was the first director. Arlene had won a beauty contest, I think Miss Rheingold in New York, and came out, and basically the directors before Tony Mann were stand here, go through this door, hit your marks, and she told me Tony Mann was the first person that treated me like an actor on this film, and this film was very, very special.
Well, she was working at MGM before that, and
yeah.
was very much in the assembly line sort of studio.
Exactly,
so,
exactly.
That would have been her experience.
And John Alton, the design is definitely Menzies, and when we get to the point when we put some of his sketches up that you have so artfully provided and put in your book, Arnold Lavin, who worked with Alton on some of these Eagle Lion films, told me that he basically took out all the overhanging lights and said, get them out of here, lit everything from the floor and in the dark, and I think that just accentuated Menzies' design.
You notice also a lot of the films told in close-up, and that's very deliberate because you don't have to build a set for a close-up.
Exactly.
So he did that quite a bit. The idea was, you'll know, the film goes wide whenever they're outdoors. They've got those standing sets, they've got those wide exterior shots. It's very claustrophobic once again indoors. It's very dark most of the time, and that's delivered as well.
Right. Hide the money. And then the scenes where the coaches were riding through, that definitely reminded me of the Universal sets and the Frankenstein movies and all of that.
All of that was right there.
All that was repurposed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about Menzies. I mean, he had such a seminal role in transforming what we saw in the movies. Give us a little background on how he became.
Well, the distinctive thing about Menzies was that he was trained as an illustrator. He was not an architect like most art directors were in the silent days, especially. He was recruited into film work in Fort Lee, New Jersey in 1917. To give you an example, for instance, his number 2 man at United Artists for a number of years, he was trained as an architect. I interviewed his son, and I said, "What did your father do after he left the movie business?" He said, "We went back to design office buildings." So that's what these guys were doing for the most part. They were designing rooms with 3 walls and sometimes a ceiling, and they were settings in front of which actors would emote. Menzies was different. People ask me all the time what the difference is between art direction and production design as it came to be practiced by Cameron Menzies. And the difference is the set versus the entire frame of the film. In other words, if you consider a typical frame in a movie, you've got different elements at work. There's pattern, composition. In the case of color, you've got color design, color palettes. You've got the idea of what is necessary in the frame, how you give it depth, etc. There are a lot of different things going on there. The art director is responsible for just the set, just that part of it. And then once the set is fabricated, the dresser comes in and dresses the set, puts the books in.
The set dresser.
Yeah, the set dresser.
Right.
So Menzies' job was to fill that entire frame, and that's how he devoted his time to production design, to the idea ultimately that you visualize a film shot by shot in advance of making it. And he did that initially. He did it in sequences as early as 1925. He did it initially all the way through in a 1929 film called Bulldog Drummond, which you may have seen on TCM in January when we showed it. And then ultimately he did it on Gone with the Wind. All during the 40s, up to the point of this film. He was partnered a great deal with Sam Wood, the director, who had no visual sense whatsoever. So Sam Wood was perfectly happy to deal with the actors. Menzies wanted nothing to do with the actors, but he couldn't speak their language. He didn't know how to communicate with them.
I thought that was, by the way, one of the most interesting facets of your book that I didn't know. I mean, I knew you worked with Sam Wood, but the degree of their partnership on films like King's Road and everything, there was really a complete division of style and labor.
Menzies was behind the camera, Sam Wood dealt with the actors. Sam Wood got $75,000, Menzies got $1,000 a week, was the distinction. But those films, the 2 men together, constituted one great director. And between them, they not only did Gone with the Wind, or pieces of Gone with the Wind, I should emphasize, Our Town, The Devil, Miss Jones, King's Row, From the Bell Tolls, I-80, which is a big discovery in recent times here on TCM and back in New York especially. People hadn't seen I-80 before, and it's been quite a revelation.
We actually showed I-80 a couple times at Noir City. I'm probably going to bring it here next year. It's a visually stunning.
It's terrific. It's Menzies in full-on Hitchcock mode, and you'll enjoy it greatly if you see it. But that was the background he had when he came to this particular film, was that what was happening was audiences were declining after the war, moving to television and the like, and so films that could be produced the way he wanted to produce them became cheaper, and he could use his talents to make a very inexpensive film that was still very visually exciting. And into the 50s, he moved into direction once more, as we know that he directed, the first film he directed that was completely his own was Things to Come in England in 1936. And he directed several very, very good low-budget films on this scale. The most famous of which was Invaders from Mars in 1953.
I think everybody that of my age, of my baby boomer, grew up watching Invaders from Mars on TV
Yes.
and having nightmares about it.
Absolutely.
Because his sense of spatial design, when you look at Reign of Terror, the low ceilings and all of that, and he did that in Invaders from Mars, where the kid comes in the police station and there's this impossibly tall desk and a huge desk sergeant, and you get the sense that, well, it looks like a dream. Is it a dream?
Well, the thing also is, and this is why it works so well, especially on a 10-year-old kid, is that it's told from the perspective of the child. And so when he sees one stage in that particular police station, that's what a child's conception of a police station is.
Exactly.
And you'll know also how spare it is, you know, in terms of there's just clock on the wall, and there are broad expanses of blank wall space. What you saw here was very innovative in places also. For instance, Robespierre's inner sanctum there. It's essentially a blank wall, but he's got all these prop rifles leaned up against it. And that's what I mean when I say pattern. It's a fascinating set. And it was as cheap as could be. It was a blank wall, it was a flat with these prop rifles leaned up against it. A way of going to prop house and just getting 300 rifles, and he had a fascinating set as a result of it.
Would you say that he really invented the whole storyboarding thing that became so prevalent when people talk about Hitchcock and so forth?
Yeah, he certainly brought it to the American industry, I will say that. The Germans did a bit of it, also they called it paper film. Murnau, especially in the 20s, was a guy that liked to illustrate this stuff out in advance. Sunrise apparently was completely illustrated. Menzies was on that particular wavelength as well. Nobody was doing it in the US really. And it took somebody with his singular eye because, well, I've used an example. For instance, you can see the examples in this film. He always had something going on in the foreground, the middle distance, and then in the extreme foreground. You can see this again and again in this composition. You'll see part of somebody's face up close, and then in the middle distance there's more action, and in the background there's action. It's almost as if it constitutes a 3-act play in terms of how they work together. And so the compositions are not only terrifically important and valid in terms of what objects, what people you're seeing, what characters you're seeing on the screen. All that's necessary for you to register the understanding for that particular scene. In addition, it's working together in a way that gives you a sense of depth that a lot of designers and a lot of cinematographers and directors just didn't have the eye for. He was absolutely a singular guy when it came to being able to take a scene. I've got a snapshot of him sitting out in the backyard of his house. He's got a script open, he's got a sketch pad, he's just sitting there, and the thumbnails that are coming out of him, just the initial idea down onto the page. We have his sketchbook for Gone with the Wind, and it's amazing how close the compositions, those initial rough pencil sketches, how close they are to what you see on screen.